What's up, guys? I wanted to talk a little bit today. Nothing new. There's no new news out there. But I did go back and I looked at some of the gameplay videos, like the Kansas one and the latest one we got from Mid Ohio. Uh, because somebody did ask in the comment section, I think, of my last video. They asked about the spotter, and my initial response was, yeah, it felt the same. I don't think they did anything with it. But I didn't, I gotta be honest, I really didn't pay much attention to the spotter. I think I was focused on other things, which, it's a reminder that I do think that there's a lot of little things that, even though they didn't add anything substantial to the game, the improvements they made to the game are quite substantial. And I was really geeked up about the audio and everything else, the graphics, all the AI things that have been really important to me. I overlooked the spotter. I didn't really even think about it. So this person, I'm sorry, I don't remember the name of the person, but they asked about it, and when I gave that response, that sounded pretty much the same to me. It didn't sound like they worked on it at all. They came back and said, well, it did sound different. It does sound improved, and um, they thought I was wrong. So I thought about it. I said, well, I didn't really pay attention. So I said, you know what? Let me go back. I'm going to go check it out again. I'm going to watch the gameplay videos again, but this time I'm going to focus on that, right? So, uh, to me, first of all, it's very limited. As you guys know, we don't have a lot of information, and these two gameplay videos are the only actual gameplay videos we've had. And the game is due to come out in a month away. So there isn't a lot of information out there, but what I did was I went back, I watched both videos, and I strictly focused on the spotter. And actually, I am impressed. It does seem like the spotter is not only more accurate, which I did think was a big problem. It wasn't perfect, but it was more accurate. There seemed to be improvement there. And I did hear new dialogue, right? There's not a lot of dialogue in the game, but the type of things that the spotter would say to the driver, I did see some new things in there. And like I said, for the most part, I would say it's vastly improved in terms of accuracy. Again, just from two videos, that's really not a lot to go on. I do want to see more, and I don't want to get too excited about it because, like, until you actually play the game and spend more time on it, that's when I'll really know. But apparently, they definitely did something to it. They definitely worked on it. So that's just another thing that we can point to and say, yeah, you know what, this is also improved. And the more of these things that add up, I just get more excited about the game. Um, the other thing I did notice going back, and I said, let me see if I spot anything else that I really didn't focus on. And there is one other thing. Now, those of you who do have NASCAR Heat 3 and 2 and got all of these games, you'll remember that we did get a lot of what's called pop-in and even some screen tearing, right? And this is most noticeable when you're racing up near the wall and you could see the fence and it was literally rendering in front of you. And when I say screen tearing, that's something that it's kind of like a line right across some part of the screen where there's like a disc, like it's two different screens, right? And they're not attached and making one cohesive picture. And you could see as you're driving along the right next to the outside wall, you could see the fence pop in, and it's actually rendering as you're going down the track, and even the shadow on the track itself. And that's where you notice what I call that screen tearing effect. And it looks like a line right on the track, a couple of feet in front of the car, and the shadow of the fence would just pop up there, but above that line there was nothing. So that was a really big issue for me, and it's really annoying, and it's really hard to ignore. Uh, a lot of you guys know what I'm talking about. So Looking at the gameplay video that we've already seen, I did notice that I wasn't seeing that anymore. They did also talk about in the last article that I covered. They mentioned how the game ran smoother and that they were able to do that with the updated game engine and stuff and working on the game more. And even though there's not going to be 60 frames, per second, it's going to be smoother. You won't get those dips. And I think all of that is kind of together in the same kind of box. So I did notice that, and it's nice not seeing that, popping. And I think they had to work on that because of this new blurring effect that gives you a better sense of speed. So that's just another small detail that I did notice going back in and saying, let me look to see if I find anything else that I didn't notice before. So that's really all I got, but I think it's substantial. I think it's really cool stuff, and I'm kind of glad to see that it looks like they did mess with the spotter. The only thing that I could still say that I didn't get from the limited footage is I still think the spotter is a little too quiet for my taste. I played strictly in cockpit mode, and the spotter is really important, right? When you play in third-person view, like a lot of people, I think most people do play that way, you don't really need a spotter. You can kind of see everything that's around the car. But if you play in cockpit mode, it's more immersive, and you really do need that spotter. And there are so many moments where I hate that I'm like, the spotter's not saying shit to me, and I don't know if there's a guy next to me. He doesn't have to be lock in step with me. He could be behind me, like near my quarter panel, my rear quarter. I'm not going to see that. You won't notice it in your rear view mirror or anything, and he could be there, and the spotter won't say anything. And a lot of times I would run into somebody not knowing they're there. So I want the spotter to be more chatty, more busy. It's also more realistic. Now that they're including a lot of sliders to the game and ways to giving you more options on how to customize the game, I could see, hey, make the spotter where you can, using the slider, make him more talkative or less talkative for people who don't want to hear as much. I would like to see that. We're not going to see that this year, most likely not, but just for future reference, I'd like to see that. So, but I did notice, that there was some new dialogue in there, and for the most part, it did seem pretty accurate. It wasn't perfect, but I want to see more. We just haven't seen enough, all right? So, moving on from that, that just brings me to another thing, and it's weird. We haven't seen anything like the previous years in terms of marketing. There's no more developer diaries or no like preseason access to people like Real Radman or Jeff Fabiano. Things we've seen previously, it's all absent, and it really, I don't know what it is, but it bothers me. It concerns me a little bit. It's just weird, right? I know I've confused 704 and Monster Games and stuff, but what it is Monster Games is the developer. They're the guys that actually do the programming, the building of the game. 704 is the publisher, right? So they're going to be involved in things like marketing and all the other aspects of the game and the company and like esports and all that stuff. And I think that I wasn't really on top of that before. I was kind of confused about it myself. But, looking further into it, that's kind of what it is. And it seems to me like 704 being the publisher, they pay Monster Games to just actually create the game for them. It's still their property, but they're not actively involved with the actual development. That's what it seems like. But the marketing is still a huge question mark. Like I said, why aren't they doing developer diaries? They could still do it and have guys from Monster Games talk about the game. Something. I have no idea what's happened to Sean Wilson. their 704's Twitter page is no longer available. It's been like that for a while now, and I'm just curious as to what's going on. It is kind of concerning to me. Maybe it's nothing, but this is what happens when you don't communicate publicly, when you don't get involved more with the marketing and just really letting people know what's going on. You're going to leave us to our own devices, which is speculating. That's all we can do. So, and all I can do is speculate on the things we've seen or the things we've read and then look further into it. That's what speculation is. It's not fact. It's just really my opinion on things, on how they are, what might be going on, things that I find interesting, but in more of a concerning way, right? Like, it's just something there that doesn't feel right. And I'm wondering, why aren't these guys more actively trying to market this game? So far, all 704 has done, marketing-wise, is their official page, which lists the game, when it's coming out, what each, the gold package and the regular, and what you get with it, and a list of, the features and all that stuff. And they released a couple of teaser trailers. These aren't even full out trailers. They're teasers, right? And you got the Martinsville Night race teaser trailer. You got the one where they fire up the engines, and then they had that other trailer where the car's going around the track. But that's it. And the game is 1 month away, and I'm just really wondering what the hell's going on with 704. Why aren't you promoting this game more? It's not like, I could almost understand if they thought they had a real bomb on their hands and they knew the game was going to be horrible and they just said, you know what, let's just not really talk about it. But even still, you're not going to increase game sales if you're not marketing. This is not one of those games that sells itself, right? So when you look at things like Grand Theft Auto, or even what we saw with Red Dead Redemption, really big titles, those kind of games sell themselves. They don't really need marketing. They'll drop a few teasers here and there, little bits of information, and the community goes wild. But with NASCAR games, it's a much smaller community, and you really do need to push and market and promote the game. And in all honesty, I see a lot of things that look positive so far. Why aren't you talking about these things? Why don't you have someone do a developer diary directly from Monster Games? Or you guys can do it. I mean, you're the publisher, but you know what's in the game. You know what's going on. Instead, the vast majority of marketing is really coming from us, the community. It's like we're the only ones keeping this ball rolling. And it doesn't make any sense to me. I've never seen anything like it. The biggest pieces of info, like gameplay video, it's coming from, some random people I never heard of on Twitch or Operation Sports, which is a media site. And there are a lot of times where a publisher gives permission to a specific media site, let's say IGN or something like that, or Game Informer, and they'll give them early access to a game and they'll let them promote the game for them. And in exchange, this media outlet, they get to promote the game, and it draws views to their site, and so it's like kind of like, I wash you wash my back, I wash yours. It's you're doing each other a favor, and that's great. And I guess you could say, especially with the recent article with Operation Sports, maybe that's what they're doing. But even then, all we got so far is maybe 2 articles, and they said they're going to do another one in 2 weeks. But man, that is not a lot to really go on. Also, if you don't really look for this stuff, it's really hard to run into it. So most of this, even if you want to consider that marketing, it's staying within a very small community, and that the point of marketing is to bring to branch out and get casual people to come in and maybe check something out. How are they going to do that? Look at me. I do the best I can. Even the tiniest details come out, I'll make a video. I'll talk about it. I try to go in depth, and my videos are very long. You guys know that. It's kind of like a podcast, which one of my other subscribers has referred to it, and I guess that's kind of what it is. I'm just someone who just goes and talks and gets into the subjects and stuff like that. It's a little lengthy, so yeah, I guess it is kind of a podcast. But even looking at someone like myself, I don't even have 1,000 subscribers. So even if I'm doing what I'm trying to do, how much is that actually marketing or promoting the game for these guys? So you're relying on YouTubers and just people in the community, and you're not doing anything yourself. I don't get it. This whole thing is just a mystery to me. And they've always had a very shaky marketing campaign. Ever since Heat Evolution, the first game, I was calling these guys out, and it just never made sense to me. So they've always been really bad at marketing, but at least they tried. At least they were actually doing something. Even the developer diaries, you compare all that stuff to this year, they're not doing anything. They released a couple of teaser trailers. And I'm telling you, if it wasn't for us in the community, all of us, everyone out there who does NASCAR videos about NASCAR games, if you count us all, it is a tiny, tiny community. It's not like GTA or even Madden Football or NBA 2K. Those communities have a lot larger following and many more, let's say, YouTubers or people on Twitch or Twitter, whatever, Facebook. They have a much larger audience. So those guys can actually afford to just put out snippets of information and let the community kind of, get in the frenzy about it. These guys can't afford to do that. This is a very small community. So how many people are actually going to watch what I'm talking about or look further into it? Not that many. So how are these guys going to generate more sales? I don't know. Some of you might be thinking, who cares? I'm buying the game. That's all that matters. The thing is, in order for these guys to maintain a viable business, they actually have to make a decent profit. So sales really matter. There have been really great games made by indie developers and stuff like that, and because they didn't make enough money, they just couldn't stay in business. They couldn't do a follow-up game. They couldn't do, you got to be in business just to even do this stuff. So if they're not doing well financially, it doesn't matter how good or how much more improvement they're showing. There's going to be a limit. And even though they have the license till, I think, 2029, that's a long fucking time. It's just a license. It's not a guarantee that they're going to be making games until then. Everything is dependent on the business side of things and how they're doing. And if, can they invest more money into these games so that they can continue to evolve and continue to improve and make products that people want to buy, is almost solely dependent on sales. They hired a shitload of people on the esports side of things. I don't know what's going on at 704. I don't know. This is all speculation. But all of these people are on salaries. I don't know what kind of I just don't know. And my only focus is that this career mode, this game itself, is always the first and most important focus, because otherwise it can end. Next year they could come out and be like, hey, we had to file for bankruptcy, and we're just gonna not make games anymore. Look what happened at Utechnics. You know, the games, they didn't improve, and the sales were probably really bad. And after 2014, they were like, okay, we're gonna have to close it down. This just isn't working out. And they came out in 2015 with a cut and paste rehash. They sold it at bargain bin basement, $20 I think, or 25, whatever it was. And then 704 came and took over, whatever. But nothing is guaranteed. And these licensing deals are not. They could have got a 100-year lease. I mean, a license. Doesn't mean they're gonna make games for that long. It just means that, yeah, you got the license. Let's see how it goes. So those are my thoughts. It's just weird. If any of you guys know what's going on, maybe you know something that I don't about what's going on behind the scenes. Maybe there's information out there I don't know. I'm rarely. I don't know if I've ever been the first guy to find out some information. Usually, other people find things out, and then I find out from them. So I'm more of a guy that kind of dissects what's going on and gives you my opinion on things. But I'm not like a news breaker or a journalist by any means, right? So it's just weird. And the weirdest part of everything is this game does look promising. So why aren't they promoting it? It's just weird. There is a chance that maybe they know something that's really bad about this game, and they're like, but even then, you look at other companies and they overhype their games. Look at Madden. They overhyped the shit out of that game this year. And they actually got their own community excited, even though they know they've been getting cut and paste rehashes for like 10 fucking years. But now they're like worked on these new animations, and they made a whole big thing out of it, and how the game's gonna run better and smoother, and now the game's out, and they're getting killed. Now they're getting killed by user reviews, not by these big publications, because those guys are bought and sold by these developers. But everybody's killing the game, and they're saying, yeah, it was an overhyped, another year of cut and paste bullshit with things you can barely mention as an upgrade. And usually that's what you see with most of these games every year. They overhype, the developers or the publishers overhype the game, and then you find out it's nowhere near what you thought it was going to be. And in this case, that's another reason. It's like, even then, even if they thought this game was a turkey, you would think they would do more to promote it and release information. We're only 4 weeks away, so it's not like I'm panicking, or it's not like I'm overreacting. Literally, the game's going to come out in 4 weeks, 1 month. And you look at the total sum of information that has been released, most of it is from other fucking people on social media. It's not from employees of 704. No developer diaries. I don't know. I would love to hear directly from these guys. Talk about some of this gameplay. And I'm sure these guys who have released this footage did get permission from 704. I guess they're involved with esports, and they have this understanding. And maybe it must be that 704 thinks, we'll just let the community, promote this for us. I don't know, man. That's all I can really say about it. I don't want to think too much about it, because I am excited about the game itself. I know we don't have that much information, but from what little I have seen, I am pleased with what seems to be the things they worked on. I don't know what else to say. There is no new information as of yet, But like I said, I went back and I looked again, and I did notice the spotter does seem improved. Any of you guys, have you noticed that? Did you go back, look again? Let me know what you think. It does sound improved. I did hear some new stuff in there, and the accuracy for the most part. Yeah, there were a couple of moments there where the spotter was a little late with the information, and a couple of spots there where they were really silent when I was expecting them to say something. But I did notice an improvement, and I noticed some new dialogue. So, what do you guys think about that? Also, the screen popping for the defense and all that stuff. Did you notice a difference? And do you even know what I'm talking about? Those of you who have been playing these games, you got to know what I'm talking about. So, I look forward to your comments later.